Well, good morning, everybody. I'm going to start you off today again with some satellite data because each day that kind of progresses forward, I think just taking a quick look back at yesterday's satellite imagery really gives us a better clue on where this whole pattern is heading. And the things I'm just keeping an eye on are these. We do have a stalled out boundary that's highly sheared across the southeast. We're going to continue to watch a lot of storms here. We had another day where much of the mid-Atlantic into the northeast were under a lot of cloud, and north of that, this is a lot of wildfire smoke from the fires that were earlier this week and over the weekend that were up here in northern, like Saskatchewan, Alberta, and Manitoba. In fact, if I move this, you can kind of see that smoke just as the sun was setting. We're continuing to watch one cutoff low that's moving through the Ohio River Valley now. Yesterday, again, produced some locally very heavy rainfall and some severe conditions from some of these storms. But it was fascinating to watch the storms unzip along this boundary that stretched all the way down into New Mexico. So you can see right at sunset some of those larger storms, and they put down some locally very heavy rain, some small hail, and some damaging wind. But the story of the upcoming week and probably the next 10 days is what's coming into the northwest, which this particular projection doesn't show you quite what's happening just off the Pacific Northwest coast. So I'm going to get to that here in just a few moments. But I want to look back over the last couple of days of total accumulated rainfall. So again, those three features, the stalled out boundary that's over the southeast, the slow moving cutoff low here, there's the front that unzipped and some of the storms that were to the south of it, but a lot of heavy rainfall coming in to the Pacific Northwest in many locations here, picking up better than 2 inches of rainfall after what was one of the driest dry seasons, especially right in through this area, that we've seen in a long time. Now, if I can, I'd like to add to this, this is just the last 2 days. Let's add 5 more days to it. I'm going to show you a 7-day precipitation map, but I'm going to get rid of everything below half inch. I do this quite often. We're looking for just the locally heaviest rainfall. And what we had out of the previous system, the one that came through late last weekend into the weekend that moved through this area, also delivered a lot of heavy rainfall to the central United States. Now, the regions we've been watching most carefully for drought have been the South, have been this section of the Midwest. It was part of the Mid-Atlantic, and it's been here in the Pacific Northwest and at times along the northern interior of the U.S. So that's kind of a rough outline of where we've had some drought. So what's happened is these recent rainfall events have hit some of those drier regions. If we take a look at the soil moisture, and I'm only going to go down 16 inches because some of that rain that's come in has soaked in pretty well, but this was back on September 20th, a week ago, and this is our newest data on the 27th. So it's good to see this comparison to watch how the rainfall is eroding things away. Now, take note of a few things here. Parts of Kansas, Missouri, big sections of Illinois, Indiana, the eastern Corn Belt, the whole of it, the Mississippi Delta, down lower Mississippi River Valley. And then take a look at most of Iowa. You see, there's been rains that have come through, but if you just kind of take a quick look, there are a lot of holes in these areas where there's been some nearby extremely heavy rainfall and massive storms. Now, as you know, I've been watching to see how this water gets into the Mississippi River, and I was a bit taken aback today because they said they have some equipment malfunction. Whoops, sorry, let's get over there. You can see it right into here. So I don't know what happened. I just pulled this up 10 minutes ago, so I'm going to have to go back and look and see what's going on here. But this was one of the gauges I relied on. Now, I have other ways of getting this data, but I just thought I'd let you know that it's down right now. Bigger picture, though, I'm thinking about where we are in early fall and what needs to happen here. So there needs to be a lot more moisture coming into the central United States for both winter wheat planting and also for bringing up soil moisture for post-harvest application. We've seen some incredibly heavy rains in the northern plains here, getting back into Montana, that have been incredibly beneficial. California is still waiting on the beginning of its wet season, which we typically think of as an October to April time frame. So we'll wait to see how that all shakes down. But it is not to take away from some of these hyper-local but very intense regions of drought. So I'm thinking about parts of Kansas, parts of southern Texas, getting into the Tennessee Valley, and then of course here in the Ohio Valley, just some of these really, really dry regions that we just can't ignore. Okay, so what are we seeing? I'm going to start you off in the Pacific Northwest. I think this is where most of the action is going to be coming through. As I just play the last 12 hours or so on infrared satellites, so this is looking at cloud top temperatures, we have a very energetic shortwave that's coming right here on shore just now, this morning, before the sun rose. But I was more fascinated. I know you're probably wondering why, but look at how fast these cirrus are moving. I think if my estimations are right, we've got some cirrus clouds up here moving about 200 miles an hour. Watch them again. Ready? There they come in. And that is a pretty strong indication that we have got quite a bit of momentum in the polar branch of the Pacific jet stream, which I think is going to dominate the flow for the next while. So as this is going to come through and bring rain into the Pacific Northwest, which is needed in places, we got to see what's behind this, and that's going to be a mainstay of the discussion. But first, I want to get to those other two areas. We are watching this morning the Storm Prediction Center has increased the area right here along the Ohio River into Kentucky, parts of southern Illinois, southern Indiana, up to a slight risk. So we're going to keep a close eye on the storms rolling through this particular region. And then again, down in Florida, you can see there's the front that came in out of the north and east, brought the cooler weather into the Carolinas, into Virginia, and that frontal boundary. This is surface-based winds here, but take a look in the upper levels. If I just jump you up here to, let's go to 500 as an example. See how the winds have flipped around. So there's a lot of shear here. We're on the southern side of this trough, and there's just more reason to see quite a bit of rainfall happening down here in parts of the southeast and getting into Florida. So let's go to the high-res NAM, just get an idea on some of this. So early this morning, model was relatively well initialized. You're going to see that right into this pocket late today, we have the risk of those strong to severe storms, but there's some in the vicinity early this morning as that upper level cutoff low continues to spin. So in addition to that, a lot of isolated storms down in the southeast, and let's go back and watch it again from this morning when that coastal low comes on shore. Through the middle of the day, some locally very heavy rainfall in parts of Oregon, Washington, northern Idaho, and this does get into British Columbia as well. Now, the NAM's domain doesn't go much higher than this. That's why I don't show much higher than this, but some of the new model maps that I've worked on, I got a new prototype site coming out soon, will have better coverage of all of this region throughout the Canadian Prairie. So that gets you through tonight. Let's work our way through tomorrow morning. There's 6 a.m. tomorrow morning, so you can see that front continuing out ahead of the cutoff low. Still have the isolated storms, but notice the rain coming through the Canadian Prairie, and through the day tomorrow, it's going to increase chances possibly over the Red River Valley of the North as we work our way through late tomorrow afternoon and evening, and then again on Friday morning, right in through here. So this is kind of our setup over the next couple of days as one system pushes east, another one zips through the Pacific Northwest, gets in Canada, and leaves a boundary on which more rainfall could come into one of the drier areas. I'm kind of excited. I'm heading back up to Bismarck today. I haven't been up to North Dakota since earlier this summer, so I'll be very excited to see what conditions look like up here and how progress has moved along with harvest. But I think I'm going to bring a little bit of rain to the area with me on my way, so it'll be fun to kind of see this part of the country. Okay, as I mentioned, it's the polar branch of the Pacific jet stream that I want to watch, so right here. And it is moving right now. We've taken a lot of the momentum out of the atmosphere, except in this pocket right through this area. And what I'm watching most carefully, believe it or not, is that little guy right there. That shortwave, see it right here, is being used or being forecast in the models to create a pretty potent system that's going to cut off over the Northwest. So through Thursday into Friday, remember where we watched the storm systems? They followed the jet stream into this area. And we're going to see what's happening in the southeast. And then here's the cutoff low that's trying to move its way toward the southeast. So this is where the action is. And that's through Friday. But by the time we get into the weekend, remember that fast bit of the jet stream I talked about that was south of the Aleutian Islands? It now pushes through, and as we talked about yesterday, cuts off this weekend over California and Nevada. So what happens is all the speed in the jet just goes over the top of it, leaves it sitting and spinning right in this area. So that's going to leave a lot of this part of the country kind of in the lurch for having, just poor upper level flow, and as a result, no action in this area. Really very little moisture in this region. But we need to see if the subtropical jet can kick that wave out, see it right there, and move it east. So by Monday and Tuesday, the answer is no. It's still sitting and spinning there. So that's all weekend spinning over parts of the southwest. And then we start to see the flow getting a bit more momentum to it. It leaves this cutoff low, but look at this. Next week on Wednesday, deep trough into British Columbia, short wave here. Now we're going to watch what that does because this could start to increase chances of moisture in this area, maybe farther back to the west than the circle I just drew. But I'm got to wait maybe until next Thursday, Friday before that thing gets out. So again, watch this. It shows up Saturday. Watch right here. This is Saturday. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. It is not until Thursday until the flow picks that low back up. So let's go see what this does, all right? High-res European model this morning. We've already walked through Wednesday into Thursday. Let's park this out there on Friday. So remember, the momentum of the jet's coming through, so we're going to keep an eye on this corridor. We're going to keep an eye on what's coming through the Pacific Northwest. And our upper level low is finally leaving, going through the mid-Atlantic here. So this is Friday morning, afternoon, and evening, playing on through the weekend. This is getting to Saturday when the low cuts off. See it there? And as we go from Sunday into Monday, Tuesday, if there's action, it's here. And the jet stream's way up north. There might be weak fronts that try to sneak through parts of the upper Midwest midweek next week, but it won't be until that low really just ejects right here that things start to get interesting about a week from now. And that's where we're going to watch for a decently sized low pressure system to sneak out and cause problems. Now, in terms of the tropics, we're still keeping an eye on Philippe, but as you noticed, I don't have any indication that in the models that Philippe is going to be making its way to the southeast coast in the next 7 days. It's still a relatively weak system and just kind of off spinning there. In fact, let's go have a quick look at it before I come back to this. It's one of my favorite sites, PhD student Homer. There you go. You can kind of get an eye on what Philippe is up to going over parts of Puerto Rico. And so we look at the ensemble spread. This is what we've got through the next 10 days as to where Philippe is going to go. So there's not a strong indication that this one's going to come toward the U.S. coast. So if we add up all that rainfall from the European model, we end up getting this. So the next couple of days, jet, shortwave, cutoff low, stalled out boundary. See them? Okay, so let's play beyond that. This is through Saturday. Now watch the changes happening in the west. This is Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Yes, some of this will be very high elevation snow. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of next week, that's when the low pops out here in the midsection of the country. So for the next 5 days, this is the best chance at getting an inch of rain. So it'll be today with the cutoff low in the Ohio Valley, stalled out front, shortwave coming through the Pacific Northwest. Let's go ahead and add 5 more days onto this, and that takes you out to about right there. So you can really see that we'll watch for better moisture coming into this area next week. But with that flow going over the top of a cutoff low, it's hard to get good moisture into this area. It's too cut off. It's not moving. It's not progressing. It's stuck in the west. So can that change later? Yeah, it'll change as we get farther out there into week 2 with better chances of rain throughout the central United States. But overall, the pattern into week 2 is still stuck like this. So flow comes up into a ridge here, trough in the west, opens a ridge there. So warmth, cold weather, all the inclement weather's in between. And that's what we're seeing here in the week 2 forecast. So you notice that from the Pacific Northwest, and then from Texas, North Dakota, and all 3 models, we're seeing the same pattern. That would be that wave, that cutoff low finally getting out of the southwest and moving east next week. But it's a ways out there to see this whole thing unfold. Do want to show you that both models are picking up on some snow in the mountains. Just a quick view of what that snow looks like. But let's kind of shift this over to a temperature discussion. Our coldest weather will be in the west with this setup compared to average, but that backdoor cold front sneaking through here, or that front that came out of the northeast, keeping it cool and cloudy here in the mid-Atlantic down to the Carolinas and southeast. So here's today's highs, getting into tomorrow. This is Thursday. And Friday, major warm up here back to summer-like warmth on the 29th of September. Then we get into Saturday, the 30th. Look at the cold air coming into the west with that trough that peels off here. So we're looking at highs struggling to get out of the 50s out west. This is Sunday, getting into Monday. We could crack 90 degrees in parts of the upper Midwest on October the 2nd, and that's going to continue on October the 3rd. So how long does that warmer weather last? Well, we talked yesterday how it's going to be at least through the first 10 days of October. But here's your next 5 days, which gets you out to October 2nd. This is day 5 through 10, which gets you out there to October 7th. We start to see some shifting around, but not until after we get toward, well, let's just say until we get toward the middle of the month. That's when we start to see some indications of a decent shot at cooler air finally making its way east. So again, maybe I should make a little bit of a modification to my week on, week off. Maybe I should say 10 days on, 10 days off. I don't know. The pattern's a bit slower, I think, than I originally projected, but overall we'll just kind of stay ahead of it by looking at these things. Okay, internationally, I want to show you, let's go here. There we go. Next 10 days, quite warm here. Warm throughout Europe and Russia. We have a lot of warm conditions still in early spring down here in Australia as well. Very warm in Southeast Asia. In fact, you just see a lot more locations around the world right now that are having a warm either start to spring or finish to fall. We'll watch this all start to shift around very soon. Next 10 days, though, on precipitation. Take a look. We're drier in Western Europe. We're starting to see better rainfall, trying to get into parts of Eastern Europe into Russia. Still very wet in the Ganges River Valley, wet in Southeast Asia, wet on the headwaters of the of the Yangtze River here as well. We're drier in the Manchurian Plain, North China Plain, where a lot of corn and soybeans are grown. But the models continue to get wetter down here in New South Wales and Victoria, and they do grow a lot of winter crops that need spring rain in this area. So this is, we'll have to see how this is in terms of a benefit or not. But let's finish by talking about Australia and, South America. And I know I have a lot of you that are in South America that watch this. I can see it on the demographic maps that YouTube provides. And if you could provide some comments, I'd love to hear what you have to say, because I want to show you the forecast for the next 15 days from our two main, flagship global models. The EPS first, that's the European model. And what it's got here over the next 5 days is above average precipitation, right from Mato Grosso and Para all the way down to, getting over here to like almost Sao Paulo, Minas Gerais, Goiás. And then you play forward, and what it does is over a 5-day sliding window, it keeps most of Brazil with wetter conditions. So this would likely indicate a very aggressive planting in this area. But we've been talking about model differences, and so I'm going to show you what the European model looks like, the EPS, compared to the GEFS, which is the GFS ensemble. Now I got to go back to the new the 0Z run to compare runs, but this is what it's got for the next 5 days. So the European was much wetter here. They agree in this one spot. And as I play this forward, that's your next 5 days. So they still agree, drier here, but the European was much wetter in that area. And then as you go forward, notice how much drier the GFS ensemble is. It's got good agreement there, but north of that, no, it doesn't. So I just would like to hear from some folks down there, are we getting enough moisture to make progress? Because we get a new update, I believe, on Friday from IMEA, and we'll take a look at it. But major differences in the models when we get out this far. Again, that is the Europeans' view of the same time frame for mid-October. So I'll leave it there. If this verifies, that's going to cause some fast planting. I'll talk to you in the morning. Thanks.